Hello everybody, here we are again. It's Andy from Snowcamp Shore with Paul from the Ski Instructor Association in Gaprun. Oh, it's not association, is it? It's the Ski Instructor Academy here in Gaprun. But funny that, because off camera we have just been talking about the difference in associations.
We have, and it's in relation to a comment that was made about 4 or 5 weeks ago from Mitchell. And he said, this year I've done and succeeded a 10-day ski instructor course level 1 and 2 in Austria, even though there is obviously difference between the candidates. Also, I was surprised to see how many people passed. Now, he's referring to a video that we put up, coaching a trainee instructor. I'll put the link up here so you can always have a look at that. And it is important to mention that this guy, because some people got mixed up and thought he was an instructor. I know that as well, because I know this Santi couldn't believe he was an instructor. But as I explained also in the comments, no, the guy's not an instructor. He's a trainee instructor. And this was only his first day as the trainee. And he went on to say, Mitchell, that I've definitely seen people pass with about this guy's skill level and even below. Well, in our association, this guy wouldn't pass. That was on that video. And that's why he's obviously on a training course. But Mitchell says he's seen people pass that level. It's hard to believe that some of these folks will start as ski instructors next season. Even though I do not think you should have mastered skiing yourself before you can effectively teach others, okay, and many other things besides, your own skills can make you a great instructor. You should have a decent amount of skills. I think what he's trying to say is, obviously it depends on the character. The person's wealth of life experience has an effect on their ability to teach, but that's, a given. It's all about money, he says, and there's not enough instructors, so they tend to pass people. Please note that this course was not with SIA, he says.
Why not?
Why not? I don't know why not. But interestingly, he passed, which is... In his case, and Mitchell, maybe you could let us know who was this association, because as people may not be aware, in Austria, it isn't like many other countries where there's just one association, is there, Andy?
Yeah, there's several associations, and what's quite interesting is one, it sounds like he's done this during COVID, which is pretty impressive. But also, what Mitchell needs to understand is, if he's just done his Anverter, which I'm guessing he has, if it was a 10-day course, that he's not yet qualified as a ski instructor in the Austrian system. He's qualified as an apprentice. He's basically licensed to go and work in a ski school and now start to learn his trade. And once he starts to learn his trade, he then gets the opportunity to go through the other qualifications, so Landis 1 and then Landis 2, and it's only when he's done his Landis 2, his snowboard Anverter and his Alpine course, that he will be seen in the eyes of the Austrians as a qualified ski instructor. So the difference in levels at that course are similar to most courses, and some of those people will have skied for the whole of their life and some of them won't, but all of them are only qualified to start their teaching career.
Yeah, it's important to mention that. And the good thing is about the Austrian system is, although he is only seen as an apprentice, like a level 1, 2 ski instructor, we are lucky enough at that level to be able to still ski around the mountain with your own group, have private lessons, do what ski instructors do. So it's worth mentioning, even if you've got a BASI 2, a PSIA 2, a CSIA 2, an NZSIA 2, etc., they are not seen as like a national qualification as a ski instructor as such. Some of them are more restrictive than others. And as I say, the great thing with the Austrian one is it really does allow you to act as a ski instructor independently on the mountains with the ski school. But it is worth mentioning that there's still a lot of learning to go on. So, and also, I think what we want to look at, and you said it yourself, you passed this probably during the COVID season. Mm-hmm. Now, interestingly, during the COVID season, the pass rate shot up massively. And this is the problem. You have to remember that this is it's human, the whole system. It's biased. It will float around. I mean, even like you look at the staatliche Aufnahmeprüfung, which is like the test to get you to start your level 4. It was, noticeably easier this season than it has been previous seasons. Why is that? Well, because it's human. There's a lot of factors that are taken into account. And when examiners are passing and failing people, they're human beings as well. They will have a good day or a bad day. And, maybe they're feeling generous or maybe they're feeling mean. Maybe you get that instructor who's dead chilled and he's really canny lad and he just gets on with things and he tends to pass people. And maybe you get the instructor who's the arse. He's, a letter of the law type person.
Follows the law. What's quite interesting, and we're kind of going off slightly on a tangent, but with the Aufnahme is, and I think it's 60, they're always allowed to have 60 on the course because they get the funding from the government for 60. And you never hear of a year where they only pass 40. There's always 60 get through.
Well, that's funding. What we're talking about, by the way, is when you go to do a level 4 diploma instructor qualification in Austria, you have a pre-test to see basically if you're going to be good enough. It's almost saying, well, you're probably going to pass thereafter. Yeah. If you get on board, you tend to make the grade, and it's really just to make sure that before somebody starts their level 4, they're not wasting their time. Whereas other associations wouldn't do that. You have the right the minute you pass your level 3 or your ISIA level, if you want to call it the old ISIA level, then you have a right to start your level 4 modules and just go ahead with it in some associations. So I think, Mitchell, what we're trying to say is well done. You've passed your Anwerder. Obviously, with that, you can go now work in a ski school if you're not from England.
If he has a European passport.
If you have a European passport. And you will now, like passing your driving test, you'll make mistakes, you'll crash, you'll realise, I shouldn't have done that. And that's when the learning process really starts, because let's face it, no matter who you are as an instructor, you have taken the group down something too steep, you've been on the wrong terrain, you've made mistakes with clients, you've acted inappropriately at times, and everybody makes the same errors. And through those errors, you hope that after 10, 20 years, you become this very experienced coach. And in a later podcast, I think we're going to be talking and following up on this, Andy. We'll talk about why, for example, people don't make it to the next level from level 2 to level 3 to level 4, and whether that's such a bad thing. We'll discuss that. But in Mitchell's comments, it's really important that there are several factors involved here. This is where people start making comparisons and it gets embarrassing. And I see this a lot in places like Japan, Canada, here in Austria, where people are trying to say, I did the Anwerder, so I'm better than you who did the BASI 2, and the BASI 2 person's not as good as the CSIA 2 person, who's not as good as the PSI. It doesn't matter really what qualification you did, because you should have mapped the qualification to the area you're going to work in, which you mentioned before. Yeah,
definitely. And if Mitchell wants to work in Austria and can get the appropriate paperwork, then he's taken the right route. I personally came back to teaching almost 10 years ago now, and I wanted to work in Austria, so I came and I did the Austrian Qualifications. So yeah, definitely do the qualification from the association in the country that you want to work. Now, obviously, if you want to work in the UK and you want to work indoors or on a dry ski slope, then BASI would be the way to go. Whether you would want to continue that to go onto snow would be another thing to consider, especially since Brexit. But I think what's also important with this for Mitchell is he's saying that the standard on the course he was on, he didn't necessarily think was that good. And they all differ. Salzburger Verband have a different way of doing it to the Wiener Verband. And we see that the Salzburger Verband is very much about, we were going to get these people to a level and we are going to make sure they know how to teach kids. It's very kids orientated.
It's orientated around the job as a ski instructor in a ski school.
Yeah.
What the ski owner wants, what the ski school boss wants.
Yeah, and in the first season, you're probably going to spend a lot of time with kids or in Kinderland. So that's what they focus on. Where with Wiener Verband, even though that's the job you're probably going to also go and do as an Anwärter within the ski school, they push the skiing a lot more.
the level of the performance skiing, for example, in general.
So
the practical side.
Yeah. So if you'd done it with Wiener, you may have been surprised that they actually wanted you to ski to a higher standard.
The Snow Sports Academy, they don't call it the Wiener Verband. It might be confusing. And also it's the same with the Tyrolean Verband as well. With these, we should say association. The Tyrolean Association are very similar to the Salzburg, where they're both, obviously Salzburg and Tyrol is where all the ski schools are. Whereas in Vienna, where the Snow Sports Academy is based, there aren't many ski resorts because it's very flat. Yeah. Now, those people, those examiners in those two associations tend to anyway be ski school owners and bosses, and they know what they want for that period in winter. They know they want people, as Andy said, who are going to be good with kids or understand the ski school philosophy, understand how ski schools work, understand, more importantly, how the beginner progression is, than even bother and even worry about whether this guy can carve down the slope or do bumps. It doesn't interest them at all, does it?
No.
So it'd be interesting to have a reply from Mitchell to know basically, which association was it, because that gives us a better idea. But for those of you who are working, I don't know, CSIA, Canadian or BASI or Irish or NZ, I mean, most of you, you'll learn a module-based system. You'll learn how to do beginners activities, how to get people used to the equipment, how to get them to carry the equipment, how to get them to put it on and off, and then eventually to just glide down the slope, do a wedge turn and then a plow turn, etc. And you work through a progression. And the level 1 and 2 is really just directed at looking after people who are in the week 1, week 2 of their ski career, if you like. Yeah. That's where I would see most of it aimed at.
What's also interesting, and again, Mitchell might not know this, and from how I understand it, is people like the Canadian systems concentrate a lot more on teaching skills. Obviously, they concentrate on the skiing skills as well, but it's a lot more emphasis on teaching, but also teaching in your own way. The methodic progression that we have isn't as ingrained in the Canadian system. I think it's a little bit more free. Yeah.
Yeah, this is where Mitchell says, bring your own skills into it. Now, what you would have found, Mitchell, is that in the Austrian system, as Andy said, there's a methodical progression, which is great for people doing the Anwärter because they tend to have to learn a little bit of German with it as well so that they can teach in German. And if you can just learn lines, and say, right, to teach somebody a plow, you do point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, right through to point 10. It never changes. It's always in the same order. You always do those exercises like that. It makes it easy. Now, in the BASI system, for example, there's a bit of free thought applied. Mm-hmm. You say, hey, look, this person's making a straight run in parallel. They now need to learn how to do a plow. You can tell them any way you want how to do a plow. You make it up. You make up the plan of the teaching lesson. And as long as you can prove that you achieved the goal, which was to make this person learn a plow, it's fine. It's completely free how you then do it. And that's where you would, if you're a bit older and let's say you were a teacher or you're a sports coach or somebody, you would bring in your own skills to say, I'm going to make this lesson more interesting. I'm going to develop some way of doing this that's never been thought of before. And that's what's great about those module systems. However, in the Anwärter, I've got to say, and Andy, because you've done it, it probably was easier that there was a set system at first, but you probably never ever used that system since you learned it. I think
that the minute you start on day 1 of the ski school after you've just passed it, I'm not saying it goes out the window because it forms the framework, but you do bring in different things,
your own skills,
things that you like to do. And also it goes back to understanding how the person that you're teaching learns, because the Austrian system is very much this is how you do it.
This is how you will learn.
Watch me, copy me, do as I do, where not everybody can learn in that way. And it's funny because it goes back to a podcast that we posted a week or so ago about which is the best, learning to plow or going direct to parallel. And as we concluded, neither of them are wrong. Both of them are right, and it depends on the person that you're teaching and their abilities and some other factors. And this is the same for this progression. The progression is there as a backbone. If you can then tag on the flesh onto them bones, then you're probably a better teacher for it, and you'll get a bit more work. So yeah, but there are definitely differences in the Anverter exams and the associations and how they see it.
Yeah.
Across the globe, not just in Austria.
Exactly. And that's what this podcast is about today. It's talking about the fact that you can go with any association throughout the world. You need to do research about why it may suit you better and why some associations, are responsible, let's say, even for the breakup of the ISIA, where they're seen as such a weak pattern of how they develop the skier that the Austrians, the French, the Italians want nothing to do with them. It's quite political, and people probably aren't aware of this political background that there's there in skiing. But it is important for you, as Andy says, to understand. You will have to look at where you want to work. You will also need to look at your budget. How much money are you wanting to invest in your development through your career? Because I can tell you one association will cost you close to 40,000 euros to get to a level 4, and another can cost you, for the same quality, if not recognized as better, 15,000 euros.
Yeah.
So how much do you want to spend gaining that qualification right through to diploma level? Now, as obviously most people, 80% of a ski school consists of level 1 and 2.
Yep.
The last 20% then fall into this level 3 and then the odd level 4.
Yep.
Because it suits the ski school anyway that way, because
cheaper wage bill.
they don't need to pay as much. And at the end of the day, 80% of the clients do not need this level 4 diploma guy who is a ski guide and can go off piste and ski tour, etc. They don't need that. Why would you be paying that wage for looking after some 5-year-old kids? So at the end of the day, it makes sense to the ski school as well to make it staff predominantly with its level 1, 2 instructors, does it not?
Yeah, I think if it's a traditional ski school setup, which is catering to the beginner intermediate market with a big children's program, then why would they have so many more higher level instructors? There are obviously specialist ski schools, places in the Alberg where there is a lot of guiding involved and people are paying a lot of money for those guides, but it's a niche. The main ski school offering is beginner, intermediate and kids lessons. And 80% Anverters. I've worked in a ski school, I think, where we had 2 Statliks on the books at one point, and that was it. Which you would think wouldn't be the way, but
and it shouldn't is. I mean, we did a podcast on this about ski lessons and stuff, and it shouldn't put you off thinking, I'm going to a ski schools and they're just full of crap. No, that's absolutely not. And we will discuss this in the future podcast about how a level 2 ski instructor could be the best teacher you will ever find in the world. It's nothing to do with their ability to ski all the time. There's more to it than that. But yeah, I mean, for example, Ski Instructor Academy is probably one of the only companies in Austria that employs only ski instructors higher than level 3, 4. It's probably the only company in the world that probably does that as well. But yeah, we have a niche because we are trying to train people to become instructors. But the benefit is, of course, if you're then doing a mogul camp or you're just coming to you learn to carve, then you're guaranteed to get that extremely good level skier. But I have to say, good level teaching's a different thing. Yes. That comes from somewhere else.
Yeah, it does. And I think that is something that we're going to cover on another podcast as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So thank you very much, Mitchell, for that that comment, because those comments are great to answer, and my apologies that I do not answer the comments as much as I should, but we are busy with a lot of other things. So anything to add, Andy?
No, just if people have got questions or do want to comment, then please do, and like we have with Mitchell's, we will use it to form another future podcast. So yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks, Mitchell. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye for now.